Go for it.
Welcome. We are live in the Rumble studio in Washington, D.C. This is a very special edition of the America Happens News on the America Happens Network. I am in the Rumble studio with our beloved founder of America Happens, Vem Miller.
Thank you.
And Ivan Reichlin. You all know Ivan. We all met in Washington, D.C., in front of the Washington Monument at the Rescue the Republic rally. I was told that this rally was going to be some type of false flag, but it was actually a truly wonderful event with incredible people. And I want to spend the next hour talking about this event because I think it's really relevant to what's about to happen in November 2024. It is October 1st. We have how many days? How many days till November 5th?
35.
35 days. Yay, I was just doing a test. 35 days until the election happens. Now, I just want to hear, do you think that President Trump can win on November 5th, Vem?
Ivan and I just did an interview about this actually, and you should check it out on our network. We're kind of the mindset that pretty much 100% they're going to steal it. That's just my cynical mindset at this time. And I think Ivan would agree. It's more about preparing for all the options. This is an odd, almost choose your own adventure type story that we're witnessing right now. We all don't know what's going to happen, but we need to have a plan B, plan C, plan D, and there's nobody better on this planet for that than Ivan Reichlin right here.
Yes, I nominate Ivan to lead us. If President Trump doesn't win, if they steal this next election, what do we do, Ivan?
That's a pretty big question. So, I mean, I think right now we need to focus on the period of time from now until November 5th. We're going to discuss what should take place depending on what we see as the outcome on November 5th. The next phase of the electoral calendar is going to be from November 6th going into January 3rd, and then from January 3rd to the 6th. And then, yes, another phase will be from January 6th through January 20th. You got to remember that back in, if past is prologue, if you look at what happened in 2016 into the 2017 transition period, they're going to do that on steroids times a trillion squared, right?
Yeah, that's
that
how
is
I
if
feel,
they
yeah.
don't. That is if they let President Trump return back into office. So I don't think we need to focus on that quite yet. We just need to focus on what I expect to see happen over the next few weeks and how we can counter their electoral heist. And there is a path for it. There, I mean, you said 100%. I would say it's about. They're going to steal it 99.9%, and the 0.01% is literally the opportunity that we could probably discuss today about the mother, what I call the mother of all Twitter files, that triggers the sequence of events to motivate the country to lean on state legislatures to go ahead and allocate directly their electors for president and vice president through the legislatures under Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2. But you don't get the political will to do that unless the entire country, uncensored on Rumble as well as X, is able to see that the 2020 election was abjectly illegally run, illegally stolen across multiple layers. And I would suspect that Elon Musk is sitting on that criminal. Remember when he said Twitter is a social media company and a crime scene? And then last week he took that tweet, retweeted it with a comment, and the comment was ... meaning to be continued. The T standing for Texas, the B standing for Bastrop County, and then the C standing for, well, the county known as the DA and the sheriff. So we're working a path and strategy to create top cover for Elon and then subpoena certain records that I suspect that he has based on my communications with several individuals that will take things to the next level that might actually motivate the country to move towards a direct allocation of electors, thus guaranteeing the electoral win for the Republican nominee, considering that more than 270 electoral votes are within the control of Republican majority state legislatures.
Now, listen, I know that President Trump will win in November 2024, but the bottom line is that I don't think the deep state is going to allow him to come back into Washington, D.C. So I think between November and January, it could be very dicey. And that's why we're here today talking about this. I just spent the last 2 months in Florida studying election corruption. So I know all the different ways that the deep state and bad actors can try to steal votes from you, the American citizens, the patriots. So you need to get out there and vote. We don't want to tell anyone not to vote. Your vote matters the most. Go vote. Go vote. Try to vote on paper if you can, and take a picture of your vote. but definitely vote, because we're going to need the receipt on your camera in case we have to audit in different counties. So 100% vote, because President Trump is the legitimate leader of the United States of America, and he will win in November, but they may try to steal it again. So once again, Ivan, you have a solution. What do we do?
Yeah, you use the word dicey. I would pronounce it spicy, but I agree with you. I would say this, that there are multiple paths to either solve the issue of the election corruption and crime, like you call it. And I say we use all of them concurrently. So the way we mitigate the risk of, say, digital fraud, retail, wholesale fraud, foreign interference, et cetera, the mail-in drop boxes. One, we need to have as many people as possible motivated to be election workers on the day of, and then in the preceding days during early voting. Some states, I think 7 states out of the 50, if not more at this point, I got to look at the calendar, have already started early voting. One key state is Pennsylvania, right?
Listen, sometimes they stop mega Trump Republicans from being election workers. What do we do about that? Contact me, 917-287-1314. Text me. I'm keeping track of all of this, because sometimes they do try to stop people who support President Donald Trump from being election workers.
Well, that's why I think it was so crucial this weekend. I mean, those that still have TDS, but that are of the mindset that we need some sort of a independent-minded thinker, are starting to lean towards President Trump via his surrogates now, RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard. And I suspect that, I mean, let's face it. When you look at the guests that Joe Rogan has had on his podcast over the last year or so, a lot of his audience is now moving towards those individuals, RFK and Tulsi Gabbard. So I'm suspecting that those individuals are going to want to get more involved, because they will have a seat at the table in a coalition of individuals that Brett Weinstein calls the assembling of the dream team, meaning those that want to restore our constitutional republic. And it all starts with the First Amendment, free speech. And that's why it sounds cliche, but if you look at the thing right behind me, and I was talking to the producer today before we started the show, is that Rumble was the only platform where we could collectively continue to advocate for the First Amendment. Specifically, I only focused on content that was already being censored by, whether it's CommieTube, CommieSearch, right? All the other fake book, etc. And so the way we get to a free and fair, transparent election is that we have to expose that the 2020 election was completely corrupted and fraudulent. And the way you do that is with partners like Elon at X, and Chris Kozlowski has been doing that since the inception of Rumble. Once we expose that to a broader audience, as both of these platforms increase in viewership, monthly active users, then we can motivate those individuals to participate in the electoral system to ensure that they mitigate fraud, particularly in the states that are controlled by Democrat legislative bodies. They're not going to vote for obviously a Republican nominee. They're going to allow the corrupted electoral system to continue. But the way we mitigate that corrupt electoral system that was created by those states is to inject people that want a clean, fair, transparent election to take place, and then also motivate those that are in the position to vote to vote, and specifically to vote for the party and candidate still on the ballot that was not complicit in the electoral heist of 2020, meaning not the Biden, or excuse me, he's gone, not the Harris CCP Waltz ticket. And if they can't come to grips with voting for Donald Trump because they still are infused with TDS, then why don't you go ahead and vote for RFK Jr.? He's still on the ballot in these Democrat states. Why don't you vote for, who else is, I think Jill Stein, if I'm not mistaken, is the Green candidate.
Everyone has to vote for Trump, because I know people right now who will be in prison if President Trump doesn't take back the White House in January. We have to vote Trump, because we have a very serious political prisoner crisis happening in the United States of America at this time. 10 people were arrested just in the last couple of days for what did not happen on January 6, 2021.
What I'm getting at there, I agree with you, Corinne, but what I'm getting at is that if they just can't get to the point where their TDS still overwhelms them, why don't you go ahead and, instead of voting for Harris and Waltz, why don't you take those votes somewhere else where you're comfortable in voting? Don't sit it out, because the more we can strip away from the regime that put us in this position of no First Amendment, violating First, Fourth, Fifth Amendment rights, the due process rights of those that you just mentioned.
Yes.
We need to educate the country that Harris and Waltz, remember Harris's team used to work at, a couple of her former staffers used to work at Twitter 1.0. They were part of the censorship industrial complex. So I'm going to use the term, punish them for their transgressions of and trampling our constitutional rights.
Yes, and it's so important to remember this. There are many different ways that they can try to steal the election. There's actually electioneering happening. There's actually pushing around people who want to be volunteers. There's actually people saying you can only vote if you're a Democrat. There's so many different levels. So once again, take my phone number, 917-287-1314, and please text me. I get so many calls. I love it. Text me if you have a problem with your election, because it's going to be the independent journalists like us that expose the corruption on the lower levels and in the higher levels in cyberspace. I just want to shout out to Elon Musk and say, please, Elon, please make sure that at SpaceX you have a cybersecurity team that's overseeing this election so you can tell us if they try to steal again. What if on the highest level in cyberspace, I've interviewed so many cybersecurity experts, what if some country, the deep state, always the deep state allows it to happen, is somehow hacking the elections like Sheriff Darleaf told me in Michigan happened to him. Sheriff Darleaf of Barry County, Michigan told me that he believes that his elections in 2020 were actually hacked by some type of foreign entity. What do you think about that, Ivan?
Excuse me. So I'm glad you mentioned that, the sheriff. So the way we can take our electoral systems back is not at the federal level, because our Department of Justice is completely corrupted. So we have to go back and take a look at the Constitution and say, all right, what institutions are at play that can be used to body check this lawless, belligerent, illegitimate federal executive branch? Sheriffs can do the investigation along with DAs. Remember, what we just observed over the last year in Manhattan or in Fulton County, that was done by county level officials. They did the weaponization unlawfully. Well, there are over, I believe, 2,500 counties that believe in the Constitution and that want to defend it. And now that we're getting free speech with Rumble and X, we can help these sheriffs, Darleaf. We can help these district or Sheriff Maurice Cook in Bastrop County, Texas, where Twitter is now located, headquartered. We can help with District Attorney in Bastrop County, Texas, by the name of Brian Gertz, and basically provide all, as independent, right, investigators and journalists, say, hey, this is what we found in terms of where you need to look. Well, let's take it to the next level, and maybe you do some subpoena to obtain particular evidence, and that can then be used in the court of public opinion, distributed through Rumble, this platform, to educate the country that the election system is not free, fair, and transparent, and we have to come up with solutions to make sure that it is. I think that's one driving mechanism to be able to clean things up in the limited time that we have, in the 36 days that we have.
Now, listen, the mail-in ballot did become a problem in Florida. In the Florida primary, the mail-in ballot was actually turned into a huge problem because there's no way to track it. There's no auditing system. There's no way to keep track of who's voting for what. And hundreds of thousands of mail-in ballots were ordered in Pinellas County, Florida, on a Sunday. No one's going to order hundreds of thousands of mail-in ballots. Like 219,000 mail-in ballots were ordered on a Sunday in Pinellas County. So just those little things. It's so important that when you vote, you keep track. Take a photo of your ballot and keep it on your phone. So in case we do an audit in your county, we can use your information, because it could get really messy after the November 5th election. Do you think it'll be? Do you think they'll tell us who won on November 5th, or do you think they're going to take some more time after that?
I mean, if past is prologue from 2020 and 2022, particularly in states like Arizona, they don't have a consistent method to determine the outcome the same day. Keep in mind that in 2020, it was the Secretary of State, Katie Hobbs, that stole the 2020 election. And good old, what's Paul Ryan at Faux News, his little surrogate that called Arizona?
He's in Wisconsin.
In Arizona?
Brett.
Yeah, good old Brett.
Yeah.
Brett Baer. Anyhow, what I'm getting at is Katie Hobbs stole the 2020 election. there's evidence that she was communicating with folks at big tech to go ahead and censor with that portal to go ahead and make sure that no one was talking about the electoral heist. And then she did the same thing when she was running for governor in 2022, as she stole the 2022 election for governor as the sitting Secretary of State from Carrie Lake. So while many people know what the problem is, and it's time for solutions in the 36 days that we have to, I mean, one other mechanism is that everyone has a smartphone. That is a supercomputer. So why don't people volunteer and go in shifts and essentially place video collection platforms of every single location that has a Dropbox, every voting location, and just video live stream on a, in a public territory. Don't violate any rules, obviously, especially if you're in a one-party recording state. Just go ahead and live stream it. And at the end of the day, when they come out with their result of, oh, this is how many people voted, and you can start now in the early voting states. And then you take a look at the video to see, oh, only 100 people went to this voting booth. And then when you take a look at the actual voting results after election day, you can say, wait, there's a discrepancy. And you have everyone's going to believe the video over the vote tally. So that's yet another layer, I think, of mitigating voter fraud or election crimes from taking place.
Need Elon Musk to oversee this with his SpaceX cybersecurity experts. Does Elon Musk have what it takes to oversee this election with cybersecurity experts at SpaceX? What do you think?
You know, we interviewed Matt Taibbi a few days ago, and he was of the mindset that, look, what Elon's doing is great, but don't trust on billionaires to save our country. And what you're seeing right now here with Corinne Clifford and Ivan Raiklin is really the power of where we are right now and the power we might lose if we don't win this election, which is that these two individuals, through their own research, through their own hard work, have exposed so much by themselves that is now revealing the truth of where we are. And while this is going on, it's kind of ironic because we're in this Rumble Studios. Downstairs, there seems to be some deep state construction people, because like the minute we got in here, all of a sudden they're banging away. They're like drilling stuff, which is ironic.
I'm used to it. I don't care.
It happens all the time.
I like drama and chaos everywhere.
I went into conspiracy theory mode, and I was telling these guys, was this all time to really interrupt our life? But this is the kind of thing we've been dealing with. It's not only that we're getting censored. It's not only that all the big tech giants are stopping us. There's hurdles along the way. Like we're having it's like track and field, having to jump through, these hoops in order to get to where we are. And
trying not to get arrested in the process.
Yeah. And we were just talking with Ivan Raiklin and the depth of his research in every single individual at Twitter that was censoring us. And this is one individual. So this tells you the power of where we are right now.
By Twitter.
This tells you the power where we are right now. This tells you what we need to do to preserve this country. And one last thing I want to say on the topic of these elections, if you guys have any questions as to how to do surveillance, feel free to email us. We will give you tips. We will get on the phone to explain. Time-lapse shots, for example, of people entering these voting booths, just like Ivan said. You set up a time-lapse camera with a little GoPro or like an imitation GoPro that you could get for $30 off of Amazon. And not a big fan of Amazon, but for right now, time's of the essence. And then we could see how many people are entering. And if 100 people enter, but then there's 1,000 votes coming out of that polling booth, we know definitively that something wrong happened. So everybody needs to get mobilized.
Buddy.
It ain't natural. Exactly. Yeah.
So you mentioned speaking of Matt Taibbi,
Okay,
you bumped into him on Sunday, 2 days ago?
I confronted Matt Taibbi. I confronted him.
And I know there was an article
I like confrontation. I confronted him. And
I can attest to that.
And I asked very serious. These guys love to tease me. Okay, so basically, I like to confront and ask the real questions. And Noel Fritsch of the National File just released a very important article about the confrontation that we have with Matt Taibbi. He was a really kind person, very, very sweet person. But I really want you, Ivan, to explain what Matt was saying and how this relates to Elon Musk and how important this is, because a lot of American patriots are really asking Elon Musk to get involved in a higher level and oversee the November 2024 election with his cybersecurity experts. Hint, hint, hint. I keep saying this because this is a message to Elon Musk.
You call it a confrontation. I just think that, sometimes you're assertive. You're trying to get your questions in on subjects that are very important. And I think he handled it fairly well. Like I've said before, I've had numerous conversations with Matt Taibbi. My sense is he's been operating in good faith. He's communicated with me in good faith, and in that interview, he did the same thing. One thing that I will note that he wanted to allude to what he said. I saw the interview that you did with him. By the way, fantastic, because no one else really asks substantive questions like you do.
And Noel Fritsch of the National File wrote an incredible article about this. So everyone read it today. It's on
so
my X
I
account.
just happened to read it earlier, just before we started the show here today. I'll say this is that Matt Taibbi mentioned that when you asked him, are there direct messages? Have you seen the direct messages? And he started to respond with that he had to sign a NDA or an agreement that he would not look at the direct messages. So while he's of the opinion that there's not much there because, well, one, he didn't access it, and he just doesn't think that governmental actors communicated through that system. It was probably done more through the portal that he talks about, with the Oversight and Judiciary Committee and the Weaponization Committee and all the work that he's done. It still begs the question of who at Twitter had him write that agreement and have him sign it. Was it the very Deputy General Counsel, Jim Baker, that advocated for him not to see the DMs? Additionally, who else did not want the Twitter Files authors, Matt Taibbi, Michael Schellenberger, and Barry Weiss, to not see the direct messages? So Matt thinks that there's not much there. I'm of the opinion that there is quite a bit there. And I'm going to add to a little bit of context to that. The reason why I think there's quite a bit there is that every time that I have tagged or tweeted at individuals that need to be maximally scrutinized for their corruption over the last 10 years, the short term is those that are on my deep state target list. When I tweet at them, they insta-block me. And so one instance of that was Terry Aderam, when I had tweeted at her, said, hey, she was the lady as the Assistant Secretary of Defense that wrote a memo to force the jab mandate illegally on the Department of Defense. And I said, we have all your Twitter DMs and all your communications with Twitter, within Twitter. And as soon as I wrote that, within hours, her account was gone.
Wow.
Like poof.
Wow.
So to me, that's a very strong indication that she's trying to hide her direct messages. Other individuals, P. Diddy, right? And all those that were involved in
How
that.
does P. Diddy relate to anything? You guys are all so obsessed with him. I used to go to all his parties.
Well, that's another
Just
topic.
kidding.
But
I'm just kidding.
what I'm getting at is my analysis leads me in the direction of I'm much more confident than Matt Taibbi. And again, I'm not so much disagreeing. Our analysis is different. Everything, like I said, he's operating in good faith. All I can see, and I think that there is substantive. Let's just say I more than think, just to be careful here, that there is very substantive direct messages that I may or may not have seen that that indicate that there's some incriminating evidence.
You don't think they've been destroyed and deleted the second that Elon Musk bought X? You don't think they're deleted and destroyed?
The internet is forever, as many people say.
Yeah.
Wow.
And let's
Okay.
just say some people may have taken screenshots. Some people have maybe taken screen recordings of those communications. And in the cloud, if you have backups and storage devices, and again, when you say DMs, I say that as a shorthand for all of Twitter holdings. It doesn't just mean DMs. It's a geotag location data that can lead to further investigative leads, such as, hey, what else were they using to communicate? Such as in the case of Jim Baker, he had probably a Twitter issued phone, tablet, computer. Let's take a look and dig into there. Every document that Jim Baker and others that are probably still at Twitter that are loyal to Jim Baker and the deep state. Let's take a look at that information. Now, I get it. Elon is going to be reticent or hesitant to release it because they're still inside of Twitter.
Not important.
How about we subpoena that? And that would be the responsibility of Ken Paxton as the Attorney General.
That's what Matt
State
said
Senator Brian Hughes of the State Affairs Committee Chairman, and the District Attorney Brian Gertz, as well as federal Chairman of the Oversight Committee in the U.S. House of Representatives, Jim Comer, working with Congressman Michael Cloud, who represents that district in Bastrop County, to go ahead and facilitate another line of subpoenas to X now that it is located in Bastrop County. I'll just end it there for
In
now.
terms of the analysis, as far as do these DMs exist, a lot of people are saying no, a lot of people are saying yes. I think you need to focus on who is saying it. And we have an intelligence expert here who is supported by a lot of intelligence experts. And I do believe that these DMs actually exist. I do believe there's incriminating evidence. And I think that's part of what Elon's talking about when he says that it's a crime scene.
Right.
Twitter.
Because remember, he was leaning towards doing the Fauci files, right?
Mhm.
That has never been released. So when you match Fauci files with crime scene, with his pronouns are prosecute Fauci, I suspect that, one line of thought is Elon is going to help release this as an October surprise at this point. I advocated that September 3rd would have been the ideal date to start it because of the early voting calendar. Well, obviously he hasn't moved on that yet. So maybe he's going to go through the traditional October surprise component of it.
I think everyone should try to request these papers. I think it needs to be done through the proper channel, because I don't think we should put anybody up against a wall to get this stuff done. I think it's so important to actually subpoena it.
Right. And that kind of goes in line with Matt Taibbi said.
Yes,
Don't
that's what he
rely on a
said.
billionaire to really get the truth
Yes.
out.
Yeah.
So then we need to
Yes.
mobilize as a society, right? Using Rumble. Let's face it. If Elon is still sitting with employees that are loyal, remember, a lot of people from the Obama administration into the Trump administration stayed in place to be that deep state. Well, I'm sure Elon's contending with the same issue. You have 100% probably of the employees that are culturally aligned with the woke mind virus. Well, when you lop off 80% of those 100, you're still left with 100% of that 20% that's still of the same cultural mindset of the woke mind virus. By moving to Texas, it doesn't immediately solve the problem. There needs to be a push by us to demand more free speech. And that's what I think Matt Taibbi is doing as well. Because when Elon Musk asked him, hey, why don't you stop using Substack and go all in on X, Matt Taibbi said, no, I'm going to use Substack as well. And that's kind of when Elon Musk cut him off. And that's why you see this, I guess, tenuous relationship that you exposed in that interview, also shared and discussed on the National File article that you talked about of Taibbi. So I see Matt Taibbi as a good faith arbiter of what occurred. And I genuinely believe that Elon Musk is also acting in good faith.
I think so too. And he's going
Primarily,
to rise to the
we have to
occasion and give
contend-
us the information we need.
But we have to
Elon Musk
contend
will
with
ask
those
him, yeah.
internal employees to literally audit them and where their loyalties are as it relates to the First Amendment. And that's why I've launched a couple days ago a counterintelligence investigation of my own of everybody C-suite level individuals within X to determine where their loyalties are. Just like I did with that target list. I'm not saying anybody at X is complicit, malicious. My gut feeling is that they are still censoring, but the investigation is going to play this out whether or not they are. And if they are, then they need to be immediately put on blast by independents like us, investigators, and then maybe at a minimum forced into resignation and scrutinized further so that the cultural construct of the employees at X represent the culture of Texas and Bastrop County more than they did with San Francisco. Because like Elon said, if they continue to represent the culture of what San Francisco represents today, then the woke mind virus is going to create the civilizational collapse.
Okay, I want to go on to another topic that's really important. We are all going to get banned and censored pretty much everywhere we go because we ask the real questions that people are too scared to ask. I went up to Tim Pool and I said, what's going on with your situation with Tenant Media? And he was, very upset that I was asking him those questions. He said his lawyer told him not to talk to press. And I said to Tim Pool, I said, well, in my experience with the January 6th political prisoners, the more press they get, the more honest they are with the press, the less they get persecuted and prosecuted. The second the judge in your case knows that you've got media attention, the judge is way more fair to you. I don't care what anyone says. The more press you get in these cases, the less you get persecuted. I have J6ers right now. I've given them tons of press, and I always hashtag the judge that has been corrupt with them, and their cases are on hold indefinitely. But if President Donald Trump doesn't win, these people will end up in prison. So we all sitting right here, we could risk getting arrested if Kamala Harris takes the White House. So this is a very serious life or death situation in the November election. And I want to know how you think this is going to go down, Vem.
Well, I believe that, just like Elon, I mean, he was talking about how he's made so much fun of Kamala Harris that they're going after him hard now, and they're going to go after him harder if Kamala becomes president. This is a serious concern. This is a communist mindset. This is very Stalin-esque, and I do believe that we risk that, and that's why it's so important that we really make sure that we have people that believe in constitutional principles. The fact that we're in this country and you have this communist mindset, I mean, I don't understand where this came from. We grew up hearing communism is bad. Communism is bad. They told us
It still is.
that they told us that Lee Harvey Oswald, a communist, killed John F. Kennedy, and that resulted in the escalation of the Cold War, another 25 years, whereas JFK was trying to stop that Cold War. So it's obvious that, we've been told the communists are bad, and the fact that this is even an option in this country should tell you something about the psychological warfare that's being waged upon us, because they really want us to be slaves. We are all at risk if the wrong person becomes president, because really there's only one person right now that believes in our constitutional principles in this country.
Mhm.
That's why this election is so serious. What's going to happen if Kamala Harris takes the White House, Ivan?
Yeah, just real quick, let me comment on the whole Tim Pool issue. So
Yes,
I
please
did a little bit.
because I was a little intimidated by Tim Pool. He walked away from me and said he couldn't talk to me about the tenant
Could I
situation
say something
with
about
Russia.
that real quick? Actually, regarding these lawyers, I'm highly suspect of the advice that a lot of these lawyers give. We've heard about what they've told a lot of the January 6 people. And just like Corinne was saying, if there's an issue, if the law is being broken, if the law is being bastardized by these powers, you have to be loud about it. And this idea of silence because your lawyer told you, I don't know, I personally have a lot of suspicion about these individuals. I think some of these lawyers are really what I call bar agents as opposed to really your advocate. That's just my 2 cents. I know you're a lawyer, Ivan. I would love
Anyone
to hear your
who's
thoughts on
silent in the
this.
middle of litigation is wrong. If you're silent in the middle of litigation, you're wrong. You just give your basic facts. You don't talk about what you did or didn't do. You just say, this is what I'm going through, and this is what's happening. You give us the facts. To keep it all in the dark and say you can't talk about it is not okay, because that intrigues journalists like me to want to dig deeper. And I really like Tim Pool. I don't want to dig deeper, but the fact that he was so aggressive with me and he would not talk about the case with the tenant media situation with Russia is very shocking to me. What do you think, Ivan?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know all the facts, obviously, of the situation, but just superficially from what I've seen, it almost appears as though it was a coordinated. This is my hypothesis, right? It was a coordinated op to go after particular individuals that have a big independently minded audience on the right/independence to make it look like they're somehow affiliated with Russia just in time for this electoral season to perpetuate the Russia hoax. So my gut feeling gives the benefit of the doubt to Benny Johnson and Tim Pool. And while that may be an appropriate strategy, what he kind of explained it to you, you are fairly aggressive in your interviews, which I respect. But at the same time, some people react to it differently. Tim may have reacted the way he did, based on what he observed and how he interpreted it. But I'm going to agree with you, Corinne, that this battle is always not only in the courtroom, but in the court of public opinion. Because if it ends up getting into a courtroom, when you put out content that is seen at scale, that kind of shapes the narrative with supporting evidence, it will, even though it's not supposed to, influence a judge or a jury pool. It does. So the more you can convey the truth in the court of public opinion that advocates for the truth, and if it happens to line up with defending yourself, then I think that's the stronger path to, in parallel, work it in the court of public opinion as well as work it through the litigation effort.
That really works in the J6 cases. Can you imagine if the J6ers listened to their stupid lawyers and didn't talk to us? The J6 cases where they actually communicate what happened, they're in a way better place. What's happening in J6 right now is that the 1512 was taken away from the J6ers, but the feds, the government, the DOJ is trying to throw new charges on them. So I have a gentleman from California. His name is George Riley. He is actually just got out of prison because the 1512 was lifted. Well, the feds are trying to throw him back in prison. So he's going to have a sentencing. He won't talk to me because he's so scared. And his lawyer said, don't talk to the press. But he should, because we need to know that they are recensoring January 6th political prisoners. This is not okay.
And one last thing I'll say on this note is that, I guess in Tim Pool's defense is that maybe the strategy is let's keep this kind of low profile until after the election, and then he can go on an escalatory campaign, because his immediate response was, I'm going to sue for defamation. So, and he was pretty aggressive about that. And the other folks that were, entangled into that, I think there's nothing there against them. It's just the FBI. Again, we don't trust the FBI. It's almost as though they mention their names to then be leaked out so that they can say, hey, look, Russia is trying to influence the election. Meanwhile, there's nothing there, but for the court of public opinion, the radical left and the censored platforms are going to use that to their advantage, which they kind of have. So if you mitigate any discussion of it, I think that might be the win strategy.
And the one thing is everybody's trying to influence our elections. That's a fact, by the way. Everyone's trying to influence our elections at all times. And I look back at our history, how we influence elections and overthrows in the past. And it seems as though that technique is now happening towards us. And the reality is, a lot of countries are trying to influence us. Why are they only pointing out Russia? Think about that. I mean, Russia hasn't been.
There's about 192 countries that are trying to influence our election.
Okay, so what's really important with the tenant media situation, the most important information about the tenant media situation is that my really good friend, Taylor Hansen, was the #1 journalist on the front line for Tenet that a lot of people don't talk about, because he actually filmed the murder of Ashley Babbitt on January 6, 2021 at the US Capitol. And so now he doesn't have funding, he doesn't have a job, but everyone watches what he does. So with or without this ridiculous funding, frontline journalists like all the men
I think they're trying to take out those key influencers.
They're trying to silence us, because what I'm worried about is if we have to audit the election in November, or we have to try to stop the certification of the November election. Think about that. They're trying to silence us, throw as many J6ers as they can in jail. Anyone who has courage, anyone who has a voice. That's why people really have to resort to Martin Luther King tactics. We really have to be really peaceful and just sit until we get what we want. It's so simple. Just be peaceful and sit until we get what we want.
Yeah. And I want to say a word actually about the way Corinne works. You know, Corinne, I don't even know if you went to journalism school, but I know you do fantastic
My family owns
work.
a journalism school.
Well, there you go. So, but based on her
I think what he's getting at is
merits,
that you are actually better than anybody that may or may not have gone
exactly.
to.
And
Really?
what I'm
Thank
trying to
you.
say to the audience
That
right
was
now.
nice. Ivan gave me a 1-up. Yay, finally. Ivan's nice to me.
Well, I was trying to compliment you until.
Don't worry about
keep
me.
going.
I can handle it. I can get bashed around by the boys all day long. Go for it.
Hey, iron sharpens iron.
Exactly.
So what do we
my
do?
point,
He was gonna compliment
my
you.
point
Okay.
being is that my point being is that this lady with her cell phone camera has done more work probably than the entire Washington Post.
Easily.
That is so fine. Why are you
terms
being
of
nice
truth.
to me all of a sudden? Oh my gosh.
In terms of truth, because I
It's
highly
pronounced compost.
respect.
It's pronounced Washington
Compost,
compost.
yes.
Washington compost.
I highly respect what she does. And what I'm trying to tell the viewers out there is you all have the power to do this. Right now, we're trying to figure out who are the bad guys and the good guys at Twitter, because we need to address those people. We need to investigate those people, their intentions. That's part of what Ivan's trying to do. All of you out there could be very helpful. So I'm going to give you guys our America Happens email address. It's americahappens@protonmail.com. If you have any information, if you want to help us with some investigative journalism, we all have the power to do this. It's all in our hands.
Listen, I really want to make a documentary about the women in Florida who are overseeing the November 2024 election. So please contact us, because it's time to make a documentary to teach you how to do this in your county. And that's one thing I don't understand. Why was there no concerted effort to teach everyone how to handle auditing the election and trying to stop the certification if you don't believe in it in your county? What's going to happen in November, Ivan, if we have to try to stop the certification? That's a loaded question. I shouldn't have asked him that. I'm off topic. Sorry.
I think we need to discuss. Let me change the premise of the question. What needs to happen in order to stop the second coming of a presidential electoral heist, as opposed to like deliberately stopping a certification? Because people are going to misinterpret that as like, oh, it was a legitimate certification. In the event that there's an illegitimately run, illegally conducted election, once again, what are our methods and mechanisms to be able to autocorrect that? And there are some. And that, I think, discussion starts on November 6th.
Okay, well, that's a discussion that I want to be part of. But until then, I really want everyone to get out and vote, because your vote does matter. I'm going to be registering people to vote in Pennsylvania this next weekend with Scott Pressler and his team and all those people. It's so important to register people to vote and vote. Don't give up, and take a picture of your ballot and keep it on your phone just in case we need it, in case there's an audit.
Speaking of Pennsylvania, Butler County.
Butler on
Saturday.
Butler on Saturday. We're all going to be there. Yes. We're all going to be
Everyone.
there. Butler, Pennsylvania on Saturday, 2 p.m., 5 p.m. is when it starts in the afternoon. Butler, Pennsylvania on Saturday. But I just want to, we kind of got off topic a little bit. I want to know, what was your greatest experience on Sunday at the Rescue the Republic event, Vem? How was it?
I really enjoyed speaking with General McGregor. We have a great interview coming out with him on America Happens. We did an amazing interview with Ivan Raiklin that's actually already published. It's Blood Money episode 254, where he talks about the roadmap should they steal the election. And the way we have it written on there is that elections being pretty much stolen, and what do we do as a result? Now, I don't want to discourage anybody from voting. Everybody should go out and vote. But smart people think plan A, plan B, plan C, all the way
Primary,
to Z.
alternate, contingency,
Yes.
emergency, and then several emergencies after that.
Exactly. Yep.
What was your greatest experience on Sunday at the Rescue the Republic event, Ivan?
I would say I really enjoyed, probably, I spoke with Mario Nawfal. Hopefully that'll result in a Twitter space, that X space that maybe Elon Musk will be a part of as we discuss this path forward here in the next few days.
You're obsessed with Elon Musk.
And
We're
then-
all obsessed with
Hold
Elon
on, I'm
Musk.
not upset. I mean, I'm not fawning or obsessed. I understand. So I look at things, I plan, strategize, determine which chess pieces on the chessboard are in the strongest position to make the appropriate move in order to correct this, the constitutional disorder that has been created by the enemy or the evil ones, right? If you will. But I'll say the second point here is, and Elon Musk is in the strongest position to help facilitate that.
Yes.
Hands down.
Yes, he is.
And then number two is that I did have a nice conversation for a few minutes with Mike Benz, and I hadn't had that before. So I think it was a good discussion. He's doing some great work. And I guess I really like the fact that during his speech, as the closeout speech on Sunday, he did discuss how we need to lean on state and local capabilities to create accountability. Now, he uses his style of language, which I appreciate and respect. I have my more assertive language that I like to use. But at the end of the day, we're both trying to achieve the same objective, which is let's body check this lawless, belligerent behavior in the federal government, and let's autocorrect to our constitutional republic principles as enshrined in the U.S. Constitution. You know, one man's accountability is another man's retribution. At the end of the day, we're trying to create a system that can be trusted by the entire country.
That is so eloquent, Ivan. I appreciate how well you speak and how much information Ivan Raiklin gives to American patriots, because I question everyone. I even question Ivan. So we ran out of time. But this concludes this episode, October 1st. 2024 of the America Happens News on the America Happens Network. I'm just going to give our beloved founder, Vem Miller, a chance. Is there anything you want to say in closing about the elections, about Rescue the Republic? Because Ivan and I like to
Gotta
talk
give a
over
shout
you
out to
every single day in a new way. Yes,
Rumble.
you can have. Yeah, thank you, Rumble, for
Yeah,
saving our
yeah.
lives. If we didn't have Rumble, we'd
Totally.
have nothing. Rumble saved us. Thank you, Rumble.
Yeah.
We
Kinda-
need an uncensored platform to live stream on. Thank you, Rumble. I'm so grateful. I'm going to kiss the floor when I leave. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we definitely thank Rumble. I mean, without Rumble, I don't know where we'd
Thank
be
you.
at. Without X, where we'd be at right now. And frankly, without people like you guys that, you know, on your own time and dime, you're so concerned about this country. I know you guys have invested so much of your own money and time into trying to save this country, and much respect to you guys. Without this whole team doing this on a very grassroots level, we would
Wide
not-
shot it.
Yeah.
The trifecta.
We're going to be on the front line. What do you want to say in closing, Ivan? What's the most important thing for the American public to know and the world?
I'm just going to echo what you both of you said and say this, that like there's no chance anyway that the three of us would ever met. Just like Brett Weinstein opened up at the
I used to wear 5-inch
the
heels
Republic.
everywhere.
There's
I would never
no
meet
way
you
that
guys.
we would communicate with. There's no reason to. But there's one thing that binds us. We want our First
Freedom.
Amendment. We
Oh,
want
my
our
freedom.
freedoms back. And the dream team is assembling. Those that have the courage, power, and forceful nature
Yes.
to be able to say, you know what, hey, belligerent government, you crossed our red line. Now we're going to, I'm going to say it politely,
Stand up.
restore our republic.
Oh, that is so beautiful. We're going to rescue the republic with the independent journalists on the front line. I am so grateful to be here live in Washington, D.C. on October 1st, 2024 with Vem Miller, the founder of the America Happens News, and of course, Ivan Reichlin, who is a true freedom fighter on the
Raiklin,
front line.
Rumble? I kind of like the sound of that.
Okay,
Yeah,
Raiklin
yeah.
Rumble. What's your Rumble channel? What's your Rumble channel?
It's just my name.
Okay, Ivan Reichlin.
Yeah.
Join Ivan on Rumble, Ivan Reichlin on Rumble, and join Vem Miller on America Happens. And of course, me, Corinne, I have to be independent.
Mhm.
I can't do what any man wants me to do. I have to be independent. So please join my Rumble channel. I'm going to create my own new one, probably Corinne Clifford, maybe The Informant. I don't know yet. But the bottom line is that, you know, we're going to be on the front line and we really are
The
here for you.
Punisher S.
So yeah, the Punisher S. The Punisher S. I think it's going to be The Informant with Corinne Clifford because I get so much info because I'm very respectful and I really care. And I do this for pure means. You know, none of us make big money doing this. We barely survive. So please, while you're at it, go to sat123.com. Go to sat123.com and please buy a satellite phone. You're going to need it. Look at the hurricane devastation that just happened with Hurricane Helene. And then, of course, go to darkbag.com. darkbag.com and please buy your bulletproof backpack for yourself, your children, and everyone you love. You need a bulletproof backpack, Ivan, at darkbag.com. You need one too, Vem. Vem carries a gun. He open carries in Nevada. I love that.
Yeah.
I want to be
Yeah.
in states like Virginia and Nevada where men open carry guns. I'm so grateful to be in the presence of brilliance. In closing, what do you want to say, Vem?
You know, just thank you for your time, guys, and, you know, really fight very hard, lawfully, and we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. I have some
moral,
legal, moral,
ethical,
yes,
peaceful, patriotic.
yes,
For-
and it
for
might
now,
get
for now.
might get rough, but this is, I truly believe that we have an opportunity here for restoring our republic. This is, as you were saying, one thing I want to mention. We're at 1776 meets the 1860s meets the 1960s. That's where we are right now, and as you can tell, all those things are colliding right now. And we have to get through this and really make a better future for our children.
Perfect.
What
Rumble,
do you
thank
have
you.
to
That's
say?
a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Rumble,
That's
Raiklin,
a wrap.
Retribution. Let's go.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
from
you, guys.
Corinne
Thank you for
Clifford,
showing
America
up.
Happens, Vem Miller. God bless you. Peace. We will see you on Wednesday. When's the next
Wednesday.
America Happens News?
Wednesday, yes.
Every night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come to the America Happens channel everywhere. God bless you.